Dark Age Drama Part 1. Dark Age drama gives the background to the Last Kingdom Vikings and their sequels, mainly from an English point of view. These series are all set during the early Middle Ages, which are often called the Dark Age or the Dark Ages. Part 1 is an introduction with historical overview and timelines. The Dark Age was a time of myths, invasion, colonization, chaos, slavery, death, disorder, and loss of learning. The Vikings were characteristic of this. The Dark Age ran from the year 400 onwards, a time when life really was solitary, poor, nasty, mean, brutish, and short, to borrow a famous quote. From a European point of view, the Dark Age lasted for the entire Middle Ages, from the fall of the Roman Empire until the Renaissance. That it had been a Dark Age was a Renaissance idea. According to Petrarch, it had been a time of errors, darkness, and dense gloom. From a Renaissance point of view, it was a time of complete lack of cultural advancement. But the English Dark Age was shorter because it was deemed to have ended at the Norman Conquest, when for a long time the English history curriculum began. The Last Kingdom series runs from the Viking or Norse invasion of Northumbria about 867 to the Battle of Brunanburh in 937. Vikings and its sequels cover what may be called the Viking Age, from before the raid on Lindisfarne in 793 until Harald Hardrada becomes King of Norway circa 1046. The historical timeline for the Last Kingdom series spans no less than 3 generations. First, after the arrival of the Great Heathen Army in 867, Uhtred flees to Wessex, where he fights for Alfred at Edington in 878. Second, he fights for Alfred's son and heir Edward at Farnham in 892 and Tettenhall in 910. Then, third and finally, for Edward's successor Athelstan at Brunanburh in 937. The Last Kingdom is based on Bernard Cornwell's books. These are firmly anchored on historical events which were recorded at the time. The timeline for Vikings includes the raid on Lindisfarne in 793, King Egbert of Wessex, who reigned from 802 to 839, but in Vikings he carries on to even become a mentor to Alfred, who was born in 848 after Egbert's death. The first raid on Paris in 845, the Great Heathen Army which attacks Northumbria in 867, up to their incursions into Mercia and Wessex, finally ending about 878. The Vikings TV series is based on the Icelandic sagas, which are a blend of history, myth, and legend, specifically the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok and the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok's sons. Vikings Valhalla features the adventures of Leif Erikson and his family, drawn from the Vinland sagas, Saga of the Greenlanders, and the Saga of Eric the Red. It also features Harald Sigurdsson's story, which is drawn from his own saga in the Heimskringla, the Chronicle of the Kings of Norway. The sagas were an oral tradition. They were learnt and recited by heart, until they were compiled and written down by the Icelandic scholar and poet Snorri Sturluson (1179 to 1241) in the 13th century, at least 200 years after they would have occurred. The sagas feature Ragnar's wives, Lagertha and Aslaug, but also both mentioned in a Danish source, the Gesta Danorum, although Aslaug appears as Swanloga. Sources from elsewhere refer to Ragnar and the Ragnarsons. The French annals of Saint-Bertin name Reginherus, who could have been Ragnar. Of his sons, the Anglo-Saxon chronicle names Ingvar, who is probably Ivar. Ubba and Halfdan are also mentioned. Ivar is named in Irish accounts as Eamar, king of Dublin. Dublin, or Dyflin, began as a Viking base for the notorious slave mob. Rollo, who appears as Ragnar's brother, could be based on a character known as Hrolf the Ganger, or Walker. According to the Heimskringla, the chronicle of the kings of Norway, he was of so stout a growth that no horse could carry him, and wheresoever he went he must go on foot, therefore he was called Rolf Ganger. Dark Age drama continues in part 2, which goes further into the background, including the fall of Rome, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and more about the myth and history behind the drama. Thank you for watching.